Hello everyone, this is Pico Entertainment and we are back again, and here now we have another video for you, and we're going to talk about Cowboy Bebop and a recent announcement from Netflix that has decided to cancel the series after its first season. Now I'm sure you all know what Cowboy Bebop is, but just in case there's anybody who's watching who doesn't know, Cowboy Bebop was the live action adaptation of the popular anime series which originated way back in 1997 and consisted of 26 episodes. Now, the live-action version was released on November the 19th, 2021, and itself consisted of 10 episodes, and you can check out my previous reviews of the season, and I will leave the links within the channel, and you can also look at my review of the anime itself, and I will as well leave some links within the description. Now, of course, the story of Cowboy Bebop is that it was in a science fiction, futuristic, dystopian story surrounding bounty hunters who were going around on having various adventures, trying to get money from apprehending criminals just to survive. Now, in the build-up, there was a lot of hype and anticipation, certainly from Netflix, that Cowboy Bebop would indeed break the run of failed live-action adaptations. Of course, we look at the likes of Dragon Ball Evolution, Speed Racer, Ghost in the Shell, and the Death Note Netflix series itself. Now, when fans initially looked at the first footage of Cowboy Bebop, it already had a backlash against it because many people felt that the actors didn't properly reflect the actual characters from the anime. In particular, we talk about Daniel Pineda, who has caused further controversy when she provided certainly a sarcastic response on Instagram to all of the criticism regarding how she looked for the character of Faye Valentine. Then shortly afterwards, when the show was released, it did receive very much of a mixed to negative reaction from critics and fans. Many people cited that the show's tone was too comical, too playful, and there were certainly issues in terms of the pacing and the treatment of certain characters. Now, despite the clear intentions of the showrunners to tell something that was very true to the source material, many people still felt that the series overall missed its mark. So recently we had various reports from Netflix basically stating that the reason for the cancellation was down to a huge drop in ratings within its second week of release. Now, certain sites have reported that the series itself gained around 74 million viewing hours in its first week, but then it suffered a drop of 59% in its second week of release. And apparently the threshold that Netflix has for any series to warrant any type of renewal is around 60%. So when I read this, first of all, I think, really, was that 1% from 59 to 60 really crucial enough to determine not renewing the show for a second season overall? And when I do look at Cowboy Bebop, as per my review, it did have flaws, but I do feel there was enough there to perhaps warrant a second season. I felt there was enough chemistry between all of the three lead actors, John Chow, Daniel Pineda and Mustafa Shakir. The show visually very much was in tune with how the look of the anime was, and certainly had a certain tension and build up towards the finale of the season itself. So there was problems, there was issues, but I do think with a bit more concentration and a bit more of a serious tone, I think a second season could have garnered more potential for this series overall. But we have to remember that when assessing any show in terms of it being renewed or not, the overall studio has to assess two things. Of course, the overall ratings and the reception amongst fans and viewers, but also the cost of the show itself. Now, clearly Cowboy Bebop had a huge budget. You can just tell that by looking at it on screen in terms of the sets and the spaceship designs as well. So when reaching this decision, obviously Netflix weighed up the costs and the fact that it was dropping in terms of its overall viewings, and they've overall decided that it just wasn't worth the investment for a second season. Now, we all know Netflix puts huge amount of budget throughout all of its shows, and in general a show probably gets to a second season before getting cancelled. So the ratings for the show obviously weren't deemed good enough to at least warrant it a second season overall. Now, of course, on the one side, Netflix are perfectly justified if they feel that the show isn't worth investing in, if they really felt that all of the analytics and optics they were receiving, that in second season would continue to flop, then of course they have the right to cancel it. But what I would say is that there's been so many examples over the years of many famous shows and iconic series that have very much of a flawed first season or very much of an unsuccessful first season, but were allowed to continue, and by the second or third season they managed to get further traction and become overall successes. Now, I do understand that we are living in a different time now. Gone are the days when you get multiple shows that would run for 7, 8, 9 seasons, where you would have 20 to 25 episodes per season. I understand now, very much in the streaming climate that we are in, you are very lucky if you are going to get 2 to 3 seasons, and most of the time those seasons consist of around 10 episodes. But I also feel that if you're going to spend a huge amount of money on any particular show, then surely it's worth at least another second season, because you never know, it could have caught more traction. Because in terms of Cowboy Bebop, let's be honest here, there were a lot of people going into the show with already a certain bias against it, whether it was in terms of the overall look, whether it was coming from a dedication to the anime itself, whether it was coming from a reaction to Daniel Pineda's Instagram post. So the problem is with a lot of shows like Cowboy Bebop, whenever it's a remake or a reboot or a live action adaptation, you're already going to be put under huge scrutiny from the fandom, who, when they look at the footage for the first time, if it's even one minute detail off from what they're used to, you're already going to be fighting a backlash. Now, Daniel Pineda's Instagram post, they didn't help matters, but I don't think they were truly critical in the drop in the terms of the second weekend. I think at the end of the day, you just have to admit that Cowboy Bebop was viewed by many as not a good series overall. I don't think there's any conspiracy, there's nothing underhanded behind the scenes. At the end of the day, if people watch a series and they don't like it, they're not going to come back for the second or third week. And whilst I don't think it was quite the abomination that has been made out, certainly within a lot of social media, I do understand that it did have a lot of flaws, and I can completely understand with many people having certain criticisms throughout the entire first season. So in terms of the cancellation, I think it does provide further debate as to, once again, whether live action anime can truly succeed, whether in both a cinematic format or a TV series format. Now, I did provide a video having more of an extended discussion in terms of live action anime, and I will leave a link in the description and you can check that out within the channel. But going forward, we do know that shortly Netflix has plans to adapt a live action version of One Piece, and if you go online, you can see they've already established the cast of actors for that show. Now, this cancellation for Cowboy Bebop already rings alarm bells, because if we look at Cowboy Bebop, yes, it's a science fiction anime, yes, there's a lot of action and a certain offbeat and quirky humour about it, but it's much more of a grounded series in terms of the spaceship designs and the locations. For the most part, the surroundings that the characters were in was very much of broken down bars and alleys. It wasn't really much of an outlandish concept that we were looking at in terms of Cowboy Bebop. But One Piece is far different. One Piece is very much of an outlandish concept in terms of its tone, in terms of its characterization. You have this huge assortment of colourful characters, in many ways a wacky and zany comedy. Something where I feel that the comic tone that they use for Cowboy Bebop would probably be far suitable for One Piece as well. But that's the problem, isn't it? Because if you adopt much more of the comic tone of One Piece, do you then risk alienating new viewers? So the ultimate question is, if you couldn't make Cowboy Bebop work in live action, then how are you going to make One Piece, which is a far more of a difficult undertaking than what I would say Cowboy Bebop is. And when you look at it again, One Piece has an even more larger fan base and following than what Cowboy Bebop does. So again, when it comes to the first screenshot, if there's only a little minor detail that doesn't fit the anime in any way, you're going to risk the backlash. So I think this is something for Netflix to truly consider. I don't believe they've actually started filming yet. Correct me if I'm wrong within the comments. At this stage, if they haven't started filming yet, I think they could do a lot worse than to actually consider not going ahead within the series, because again, you're going to consider spending a huge amount of budget for One Piece, because I believe One Piece is not something that you can do very much on a grounded take and still satisfy fans as well. It has to be, as I mentioned before, much more of an adventure and a fantasy with a high budget surrounding it. So Netflix, if I was them, I would actually pull back on the One Piece show. But if they've already started filming it, what I would then suggest is that none of the actors respond to any criticism that you will get online, because you will get it online. Anime fandom is one of the most loyal fandoms and committed fandoms within all of social media. So when it does come to getting any criticism in terms of introducing the One Piece show, they really would be advised not to respond to it. Don't reply to anything in terms of Twitter or Instagram. And that sense, that will then give One Piece a better chance of succeeding when it's broadcast on its overall release. So that's really, I think, a certain lesson to be learned in terms of Cowboy Bebop, in terms of responding to online criticism. As I said before, I actually think they did a decent job in sticking close to the source material itself. But even though you stick to the source material in terms of an aesthetic, you still have to provide good storytelling, good pacing, and good narrative structure. And I think Cowboy Bebop kind of failed on all of those three fronts. And again, viewers are entitled to state their overall opinion. If they watch the show and they don't like it, they don't have to come back and watch it for a second week. So again, just to wrap up, there's no real sense of injustice or conspiracy, as I mentioned before, or outrage concerning this news. It's just the fact that they took a huge punt on this series. They backed it up with a lot of money. They had very good performances from all of the lead actors, and they tried to stay true to the source material as close as they can. But at the end of the day, if it wasn't a great show, then viewers deemed it that way, and you're going to get a drop in ratings. And in this case, the drop in ratings weren't good enough for Netflix to deem it for a second season. In terms of Cowboy Bebop, that's the end of that story. There's nothing to be followed on. All of the actors and the directors can move on to other ventures. I'm sure we'll see them pop up in some other Netflix show or Amazon Prime show in the next upcoming months as well. So I wouldn't feel too much sympathy for them. They tried to make a good effort and it failed, and that's what happens generally in entertainment overall. So a big miss then for Cowboy Bebop getting cancelled in its first season overall. I still maintain that anime can be done in live action, both in movies and television series, but it's not always going to be a perfect run of adaptations. You are going to get hits, you are going to get misses. We had something a bit similar, if you remember, with the Jupiter's Legacy series, which again cost a huge amount of money. I think that cost around 200 million, and that was cancelled after its first season as well. So another consideration, I think, is to also consider how much budget you're putting behind these shows. It does need a high budget, but at the same time, you don't want to overspend if you don't have full confidence that it's not going to get the upturn in subscribers for your overall platform. So okay, a sad departure for Cowboy Bebop cancellation, but at the same time, I wouldn't write off live action animes adaptations overall. I still think there's potential there if you do it right with a lot of skill and handling and care in terms of the source material. I do truly think that they can still be successful, and we will overall wait and see in the next upcoming weeks and months whether we will indeed see the live action adaptation of One Piece. I'm pretty much sure we'll hear further news from that in the following future. So that's my overall thoughts and feelings in terms of the cancellation of the live action Cowboy Bebop from Netflix within its first season. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you think that this cancellation justifies the fact that live action anime shouldn't be translated and it should just be left alone? Or do you still have faith that certain anime can be translated correctly and just Cowboy Bebop in this case was just an anomaly, and that studios like Netflix and Amazon should still have confidence in the genre overall? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Also, if you have any further thoughts in terms of the One Piece live action projects, do you think that should still be go ahead, or do you think they should still be cancelling it if they haven't indeed started to film it? Let me know all of your thoughts in the comments. Please also hit and like the subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, stay at safe distances, and I will see you very, very soon.